our grammar time this week just so happens to fit pretty well with our story time. And so in story time, if you haven't watched it, you might want to. It's the story If You Give a Moose a Muffin. If you have this book at home, you could probably also find it online for free. But if you have this book, I would get it out. That way you can go over and it will help you solve the problems. So here are the pages that you need from your lesson scans. There are 3 pages that say cause and effect at the top, 11, 12, and 13. I would suggest that in order to make it easy for yourself, because that's the correct order, 11, 12, and 13, that you either glue these 3 pages together or staple them together like a book. You can even glue them into your language arts journal if you want, however you want to keep track of them. And then the last page has a bunch of rectangles. So what I need you to do now is you're going to cut out each of these rectangles. So you'll cut all the way down and across on each one. So I'm going to pause my video so that I can cut out each of these rectangles, and you should do the same thing. And it's not just this side. Please also do these rectangles. I know they're a slightly different size. That's because Mrs. Smith kind of had to make her own form of this lesson, and it didn't come out perfectly. But as long as there's learning happening, it probably doesn't have to be perfect. So I'm going to pause and cut mine out, and you should do the same. Ta-da! Ready. Okay, so here's how I set up my workspace. I have my glue ready, and I have put out each of my rectangles that I need to place inside the story out so that I can see each one. You are either filling in the effect, which is what happened after this one, or you are filling in the cause. So what we'll do is we'll do 2 on each page together, and then I want you to try to do 2 of those on your own. If you want to do all of it on your own, then you should pause me now and then check your answers. And no matter what, we'll all check our answers at the very end. So let's start over here. So if we remember, we began with if you give a moose a muffin, he's going to want jam. Okay, and if you recall, why did he need a sweater? Why did he need a sweater? Why do you need a sweater? He needed a sweater because it was cold outside. And so this is the correct picture for that. You can see we have a cold person and then a thermometer. So it was cold outside. I want you to try to do these 2 on your own. At the bottom, you can fill it in if you wish. You don't have to. If you, let's do this one. Give him a muffin, then he'll want jam. The moose was cold. Oh no, the moose, this is the effect, needed a sweater because he was cold. So at the bottom, you use these lines in order to phrase in words what the pictures show, and we can only really show 2 of those, so just worry about those 2. It's also okay if you skip that part. All right, so let's do this page together. So he'll want paints, if you recall. And when he wants paints, he'll ask you to do what with the paints? He's going to ask you to make the background. And what will remind him that he wants to make a puppet show? It will remind him that he wants to make a puppet show because, if you recall, because he wanted to sew. Remember, he had to sew some of the buttons? And so, because he had to sew some of the buttons, it reminded him of a puppet show. And then he said, oh, in order to have a puppet show, we have to make a background. So here's some paints. He'll make a background. Now you can see he's behind the couch here. What does he need to do in order to cover his antlers? How about over here? Then the paint will spill. And so he says, how can we fix that problem? We'll clean it. And when we clean it, then we need to make sure that we hang up the laundry, which will remind him of jam. And then when he has jam, he'll say, you know what goes great with jam? Muffins. Uh-oh, we're back to the beginning. Okay, so I'd like you to try to fill in the rest of these on your own. Go through the story, use the story time to help you fill them in, and then check your answers with me when you're done. So you should pause me now so that you can fill them in and not but just watch my answers. See you in a moment. Okay, so let's go over the answers. If you give a moose a muffin, he'll want some jam. Then he'll want all the muffins, and he'll ask for more, so he'll ask you to go to the store. But when he goes outside, he'll notice it's chilly, and he'll ask to borrow a sweater. Unfortunately, the sweater has some broken buttons, and so he says, you know what, I'll sew those buttons. When he sews his buttons, it reminds him that his grandma used to make sock puppets, so he'll ask for some socks. Oh, you know what? And he'll make some sock puppets. I wonder if you guys noticed that. Looks like they had a double picture on that one. I'll have to get rid of that for next year. So he'll make some puppets, and he'll want to make a puppet show. But he'll say, you know what? I need some paints so we can make a background. And he'll ask you to help him make a background. Then he'll get behind the couch, but unfortunately, his antlers show, and so you'll go get him a sheet to cover those antlers. The sheet will remind him of a holiday coming up, Halloween. But he'll scare himself so much that he spills the paints. He says, oh, I can wash them and then dry them outside. When he's outside, he'll see Mother's blackberry bushes, which will remind him of jam. And then the jam will remind him that jam goes really great with muffins. Uh-oh. So we know all about cause and effect now. All these things that if we do this, this might happen. If we do this, this might happen. If you give a moose a muffin, he'll want some jam. If you give a mouse a cookie,